Welcome back. So here we are. We're going to go over sequence settings and starting a sequence. All right, there's two ways you can start a sequence. You'll notice that this is where the sequences will lie. They actually will hang out in this project window over here, but this is what you'll use to look at your sequences. You'll notice on the timeline here it says no sequences. So if you want to start a sequence, one of the easier ways to start a sequence is to import some footage by double left clicking into the project pane. Come to your test folder footage and then we'll just grab one of these, right? One of these footages. Okay, now if you double click on this footage here, it'll actually show it to you up here in this test pane, right? So this is our footage. One of the easiest ways to start a sequence is to just grab your footage and drop it on there. And it'll start a sequence, and the nice thing about this is this sequence will match whatever your frame rate and whatever your resolution size is. So if it's a 720p 25 frames per second, then your sequence settings will now match that size. And you can come up here to sequence and do sequence settings, and right up here where it says video, look at your frame size and it'll say 1280 by 720. That's what this footage happens to be. And up here, time base is 25 frames per second. Of course, you can change this, but I'll show you how to do that. All right, so hit OK. So that's one way of making a sequence. Let's go ahead and Command Z and Command Z again. Okay, so we don't have a sequence, and Command Z or Control Z on a PC. So we don't have a sequence here anymore, so that just kind of undoes things. You can also come up here, of course, to go edit, undo, and then say you want to redo that. You can just redo it. But we're going to go ahead and keep that undone. All right, so we don't have a sequence, and we need to start a sequence. You can come up here to File, New, Sequence. All right, and now some options pop up here. Generally speaking, unless you're using one of these other cameras, you might want to go to like a digital SLR. If you're using a digital SLR, you can come over to digital SLR, hit 1080p, and then say if we're actually shooting in 720 today. So you can come over to 720, and you can say you're working in 720/24. Hit this. You can either double click it, name your sequence if you want, or hit OK. Now this makes a sequence. Now you'll notice there's your sequence over here, right? So if you want to name it, we'll just call this sequence job interview. Okay. All right. So this is your sequence. You'll notice it looks different from your footage. Your sequence says 23.976 frames per second because that's what we put up in the sequence settings. Again, come up to sequence settings and check it to make sure. And sure enough, 23 frames per second. But you're on 720p because that's what you chose. All right, so come on down here and you look and you just say, well, wait a minute. My frame rate is 25 frames per second. So your frame rate is not matching your sequence settings. Well, here is one of the interesting things. If you set your sequence setting up first, when you take your footage and you drop it onto a sequence that does not match, it's going to ask you something. It's going to say clip mismatching warning, and it's going to give you an option. It says this clip does not match the sequence settings. Change sequence settings to match this clip settings. It's going to give you the option. Either keep the existing settings so it'll stay with that 23 frames per second, or you can change the sequence settings to match the clip. Now in this case, we're going to go ahead and change the sequence settings. I would leave this always ask on there because there's going to be several times where you're going to want to have the option because you just forgot to set up the sequence, or you set up the sequence incorrectly, or maybe you were doing a time lapse and you didn't want a sequence that's going to be 8K. All right, so now you'll notice if you come up to sequence settings and check it, you'll see it's 25 frames per second and it matches your 720p. Okay. And so that's pretty much it for sequence settings. Again, if you just want to name this sequence, just come over here and then left click on the name and you can change it to whatever you want. Okay, thanks.